Hey YouTube, it's Terry. I'm back again. So sorry I didn't post anything yesterday. I was really not having a really good day, and I try to post several times a day if I can. But I'm trying to cut down the rambling. So back to the prison story. So I was at PCU, which is Pickaway Penitentiary, and it was a level one, and I really had to pick and choose because I didn't want to go further away. I didn't want to go further north because if they moved me north, I would have been several hours away from home. And at least being in Columbus and staying in Columbus, because the correction center, the intake center, was like right across the street from Pickaway State Penitentiary, and so the deal with this was it was closer to home, and I felt closer to home, and I didn't want to go further away. Plus, I had a holder in Kentucky, so I didn't want to go further away than have to take that drive and make it even longer. Because being a big dude and having your hands cuffed behind your back, it really hurts for 2 hours anyway. But Pickaway was known as a ladyboy camp. It was a lot of dudes with wieners and big boobs because they were all trying to get sex changes, and I don't know what the deal was with Pickaway, but they had a lot of them. And you should see the ladyboy gangs; those are fun because they roll up on people and beat the hell out of them. But um, so I was a level one camp, like I said, and the first day there, I seen someone get shanked in the neck, which was very, very. It's very eye opening, even for a level one. But there's this dude named Rakim I became friends with because I wanted to keep. I was a short timer, and short timers, no one wants to fuck with you because you're a reminder that you don't have a lot of time, and they put you in a prison, and it's made to really be bad on you, and it was. But I got into a lot of fights in 6 months, and having to hide those fights was harder to do each time. But Rakim was a really good dude. He was like a really short black dude, but he was built and had tattoos all over his face. And the way the dorms was, there was a dorm on the right and left of the CO's desk, and there was a gate that you could shut. Well, this dude wanted to be funny, and him and two of his friends stole Rakim's TV. And you don't. There's a couple things you don't want to be. You don't want to be a kid toucher in prison. You don't want to be a thief, and you don't want to be a rat. Those are three things that will get you quick. Um, so when Rakim found out who it was single elimination. He waited for the guard to go and leave the building for a second for a smoke break. And when he did, he shut the door and it locked. And he ripped the metal lid off his box where he kept his food, because they give you a box that you can keep your commissary in, and it has a little lock on it. And he just ripped the lid off, and he found the first dude and beat him until he was unconscious. And the other two guys was trying to run and scream, and it didn't work out too well for those guys either. He got a hold of them and he mauled them. Um, it was very bloody, very violent, and very, they got what they deserved. You don't steal from people, especially a good guy that is just trying to do his time. He's trying to get back to his family, because um, prisons aren't made to make you better. They're there to make you worse, because all the drug programming I had to do on my own, and I had to force myself to go, because they don't hold you accountable and they don't do anything. So you go on your own time, and you make sure you're accounted for, and you make sure you do what you have to do. Also, when I was in prison, I made sure I got my mental health checked out, because there was a lot going on with me and I didn't know what it was. Come to find out, I had PTSD real bad. And I was bipolar. I had bipolar disorder, alcohol use disorder, and opioid use disorder. And they had started medicating me for this stuff, and I became the PTSD came from when I was young. I was like 13, and my dad and my mom was fighting, and my dad pulled out a revolver, stuck it to his head, pulled the trigger in front of me and my mom. The gun kicked. The gun knocked him out. The bullet grazed his head and went into the ceiling. And my dad was a felon. He pulled a gun on the cops, and he beat the shit out of cops. He didn't like them, even though most of them were just doing their job. And then you have your select few that are garbage. But I love my dad and I miss him, but he had a lot of mental health issues himself. But when he did that, I had PTSD really bad from there on out. And then there's a couple other things that's happened in my life that's made it really bad too, but it's just what it is. We all have our hard times, and we all have to continue, and we have to go. But I feel bad now because now my fiance has to deal with all the shit that's mentally a mess in me. But I try really hard to not be so crazy and not be so bad. But and here's the thing. Yeah, I vape. I quit smoking for the longest time, and my lungs didn't get better. They continue to get worse. And with that, I was just like, I'm going to be as dumb as I was when I started smoking, because I started smoking because my mom wouldn't stop smoking, and I smelled like smoke all the time, and I was coughing up stuff even when I was a kid. So I was like, well, if you're not going to stop smoking, I'm going to start smoking, because I was like, you're not listening to me. And then after I started smoking, my mom quit like a year later, which I'm kicking myself for now, because the COVID, before anyone knew what it was, and it wrecked my heart and my lungs, and the smoking didn't help, and I was done for it. But a lot of people want to comment about me vaping in the hospital and stuff. Yeah, I'm not smart. I never said I was. I have temptations and I have problems, and needing nicotine is one of those things. It's crappy, but my vaping doesn't affect anyone but me, and my vaping doesn't make my breathing any worse. What's getting me is the carbon dioxide builds up in my system, and my body can't regulate it and get it out fast enough. That's why I ended up on the vent, because my carbon got to a 71 and overloaded my system, and I almost died because my lungs were shutting down, and they had to get the carbon out of my system. But knowing that I can quit smoking, I can quit vaping, I can quit all that, and that doesn't change, is a really scary proposition to be in. And so coming off the vent, I have a lot of mental issues from being on the vent, because it's a scary thing to wake up to when your hands are restrained and you can't do anything, and people are telling you, hey, you're going to be taken off the vent, but there's a good chance you can go back on, and you're afraid that it's going to be the end of you at that point. I just happen to be a fighter, and my dad was a fighter. He got shot 6 times, stabbed a lot, died on the table 3 times, came back the last time, and the man overdosed over 500 times in his life, and that's not a joke, and I wish I could joke about that. My dad had he was addicted to opioids. They're addicted to alcohol. My dad was addicted to anything he can get his hands on. And the last month of his life, I was trying to get him off everything. I tried to get him on the Subutex, because that's what I take for my addiction, is Subutex, and it helps a lot with cravings and not wanting to. I haven't reoffended in 6 years. I've not had an issue with it. I'm not relapsed at all, and on top of that, I haven't drank in damn near 8 years. But with that, it's just, you got to be careful, because I did something stupid. I went to prison, and I paid my time, and I paid my dues, and even after that, people want to look at you like you're a criminal, and I'm a felon. Mine was a nonviolent offense. Mine was a victimless offense. And, people that was hooked on heroin was getting all these programs, but I couldn't get a program. Kentucky didn't want nothing to do with me until Ohio gave me 6 months, and then when they found out that, they were like, oh, well, we can get money for them too, because they get so much money for your first felony number, and then so much for you afterwards. And they want you to come back. They want you to keep reoffending, because that's where they make their money, and that's where, they get their end of it. But they don't understand the inmates are the ones that run those institutions, not the COs. The inmates decide if they go home at the end of the day and if they're still breathing. And I've seen a lot of COs that understood that, and I've seen a lot of COs that got carried out in body bags because they didn't want to adhere to what the situation was. And even being a level 1, the lowest camp you can be in, there was murderers that's been locked up 20, 30 years that was good enough over the years to get their level down to a level 1, and then someone did something stupid, and they don't understand that person murdered someone for less than nothing, and someone ended up getting killed again because you want to owe a debt, or you want to do this, that, or another. It's not hard. In prison, I went by a series of rules. And one, pick away, you didn't have to run with your color. I ran with a couple white dudes, a couple black dudes, and a couple Latino people, because I'm not a racist person. I like being around people, and I liked having friends. And if I needed something, it was one of those things where you could borrow from your friend, and you didn't have to do a 2 for 1 or a 3 for 1. You could just pay them back 1 for 1. But I think tomorrow I'll get on here and tell some more stuff about other stuff I've seen when I was locked up at Pickaway. If you are liking the prison stuff, let me know. If you want me to switch to gaming or movies, just shoot me a comment, like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell for you to know when I get my videos on here. And leave comments, because I will answer most comments unless you're being a goober, and then I'll just ignore you. But I love you guys. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe, and thank you for believing in me and giving me a voice to do this, because it's very therapeutic in a way. And I'm trying to get monetized so I can pay for a lot of the medications that I can't pay for now, and pay for a lot of the medical equipment I can't pay for, because being on disability, I only get $900 a month, because Social Security lost a lot of my work time, and they lost, they cut a lot of the money that I was supposed to get off, because they didn't want to pay me the money on the back end of a 2-year wait for me to get on disability. But I appreciate you guys, and I love you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And you have a wonderful day.